and we invite you for the address. Thank you.
Namaskar. Dhanyavad. Thank you very much. Good afternoon, everybody. Thank you very much for giving such a detailed description of mine. And I am privileged to be the part of this 2 days national workshop on challenges in higher education in COVID-19 pandemic, organized by Saksham Society Jaipur and NC Chaudhary Autonomous College Jajpur, Odisha. First of all, let me express my heartful gratitude to my best friend Dr. Virendra Kumar for inviting me as a resource person for this 2 days national workshop. I also thankful to the entire team, especially to Dr. Shilpi Chauhan, an energetic secretary of the Saksham Society, and Dr. Sarada Prasad Mahapatra, the academic head of NC Chaudhary Autonomous College Jajpur, along with Dr. Biswajit Mahapatra and Dr. Indu Bansal, who is continuously and effortlessly pursuing this workshop. The topic chosen by the organizing committee is quite appropriate and relevant in the present scenario. But I would like to mention here that nowadays at every platform of digital webinars, conferences and workshops, etc., the only one thing is being discussed, that is COVID-19 and its challenges. Though it is a topic of great importance, I think we have a lot of discussions with the previous resource person before me, but there is an other important topic that must be discussed in this workshop, and that is the National Education Policy 2020. So, I will discuss on the topic challenges in higher education in COVID-19 pandemic along with the National Education Policy 2020. Dear friends, all educational institutions across the globe have already closed due to the COVID-19 pandemic since the month of March. According to the UNESCO report, COVID-19 has affected nearly 68% of total world students population as per the data taken during first week of June 2020. Outbreak of COVID-19 has impacted about 1.2 billion students and youths across the globe by school and university closures. Several other affected by the various restrictions and the nationwide lockdown for COVID-19. Most governments around the world has temporarily closed educational institutions in an attempt to control the spread of the pandemic COVID-19. This worldwide closure has impacted drastically the world's student population. Governments around the world are making efforts to diminish the immediate impact of closure of educational institutions, particularly for more vulnerable and disadvantaged communities, and trying to facilitate the continuity of education for the using different digital modes of learning. There are close to 1,000 universities, 40,000 colleges and nearby 11,000 stand-alone institutions in India. According to the survey report of the Ministry of MHRD, Government of India conducted on higher education, it was observed that there are 993 universities, 39,931 colleges and 10,725 stand-alone institutions listed on their portal in 2019, which contribute to education. The pandemic had significantly disrupted the higher education sector. A large number of students, Indian students, who are enrolled in many universities abroad, especially in worst affected countries, are now leaving those countries, and if the situation persists in this long run, there will be a significant decline in the demand of international higher education also. Pandemic COVID-19 has severely affected the total educational system of India as well as the globe, but some of the most impacted areas of higher education of India. And thus, in this pandemic situation, we see clearly a paradigm shift in higher education. So, it is hard to imagine the new world of Indian higher education post COVID. For example, can campuses be 100% touch free? What happened to the group work where students come together to complete an assignment or an experiment? What happened to university student residences where huge capital is locked up? How will the universities ensure social distancing in traditional classrooms? How does the university evaluate the risks, if any, in online education? And will students pay the same price as that of campus program? While it is hard to imagine the new world, a few issues seem to emerge that will lead to new paradigm. Many challenges are created by COVID-19 in the field of higher education. The main challenge is that e-learning comes across an somewhat patchy and impersonal experience. Also, e-learning is likely to witness a high dropout rate due to the lack of atmosphere for studying. Students might tend to get distracted by gaming, consoles, social media at home, and might not feel a sense of community while taking online classes. Successful delivery of education is also in question becomes because learning at the level of higher education and learning at the kindergarten or school level can be different. Digital education cannot be applied the same at early level of the education. Dear friends, one other challenge will also occur in teacher educators. A paucity of contemporary teachers has been pressing challenge already, and it is growing more serious. Faculties are being called upon to redesign course content to meet the current and future needs, moving away from traditional pedagogical in most average institutions. The demand for quality educators will shape the way higher education moves towards from this crisis. Usually, this is the time young student writes entrance exams, consider which colleges to apply to in India or make plan for studies abroad. But there is nothing usual about the times today. The COVID-19 pandemic has shocked the world. The pressure on students and higher education institutions is high. Schools and universities have been closed and exams postponed. Classrooms are going virtual and admissions for upcoming academic year are fraught with confusions. According to UNESCO, over 320 million students in Indian schools and colleges are currently impacted. The pandemic has pushed the world to drastically reinvent ways of coping with the new normal. After the initial phase of complete overhaul, it is critical to understand the short and long term impact and future measures. Can India emerge from this crisis with a refreshed perspective and boost to higher education? Yes, there is a way. Online learning is here to stay. As we are immediate and effective response to the crisis was to go digital. Developing robust online platforms has become necessary to offer continuity in learning. Yet, in a developing country like India, with vast disparity in socio-economic backgrounds of students and the quality of educational institutions, the shift has not been easy. The digital divide has been further widening the gap and need urgent attention from both public and private sector players as the crisis continues. Good teachers, refreshed curricula and effective tools will ensure students stay involved and active in the learning process. Though these are the challenges, but there are some benefits of this digital era in our country. The most important benefit of this online learning is that more Indian students will stay home in India. Dear friends, lakhs of Indian students have increasingly chosen to pursue higher education abroad. As per reports, India is the second largest resource of international students in the world. This usual exodus is likely to transform, at least in the immediate few years, to an influx into Indian institutions given travel restrictions and health risks. This means the crores of rupees and resources spent in foreign education could potentially be retained in the country as more students look towards options at home. While international institutions might bear the brunt of the change, it is a remarkable opportunity for India to enhance its capacities and offer quality education at par with global standards. In this way, we have the emergence of new trends in teaching and learning and beyond the top band of institutional excellence with private universities setting best practices. Indian academia has been in need of transformation long before the onset of the pandemic. There is an opportunity to rethink the traditional education system now. Dear friends, digital learning is leading the charge as a mainstay, and many new trends are picking up momentum across the globe. Multidisciplinary and modular pedagogy that afford transferable skills and customized learning will succeed. Post pandemic times could see a blend of e learning and mainstream face to face teaching with a boost from traditional universities and the edtech sector. Opportunities for student mobility and practical exposure uh, through exchange programs, internship, participation in conferences, and more could likely be off the table for some time. Innovative new forms of collaboration and alternative paradigms are needed to drive learning, research, and teaching. Sharing of knowledge between institutions globally through joint teaching, virtual guest lectures, etc., could give students an enriched global perspective in these difficult times. Though these are the main and major challenges in higher education during COVID-19 pandemic, but except these, there are some other challenges also prevailing in higher education since earlier in 21st century. It is our 74th year of freedom. Still, our education system has not been grown completely. We are not ready to list a solitary college in the top 100 universities in the world. Different governments changed during these 6 decades, but none of them are able to tackle the challenges in higher education in India. They attempted to help the education system and actualized different education approaches. However, they were not adequate to put a model for the universe. UGC is persistently working and concentrating on quality education in the higher education area. Still, we are confronting part of the issue and challenges in our education system. A portion of the essential challenges in the higher education system in India are enrollment, equality, quality, poor infrastructure, political independence, faculty deficiencies, and the powerlessness of the state educational system, accreditation, research and innovation, structure of higher education, etc. Except these, we have great challenges of higher education system in India that are the gap between the supply and demand. In higher education, India has a low rate of enrollment. For example, gross enrollment ratio is at only 19%. If we compare to China and Brazil, GER is 26% and 36% respectively. The second is lack of quality research work. There is no shortage of funding for the top Indian institutions such as IITs, IIMs, and other institutes of national importance. However, budget for the research is not underspent due to the insufficient good quality research works. Due to the limited focus on research and internationalization, very few Indian higher educational institutes are globally recognized. The third is the number of research papers published in India has increased continuously for the past few decades, but reflected in low citation impact if compared with other countries like Germany, United States, France, and China, etc. Next is the Indian higher education is facing with the problem of poor quality of curriculum. Most of higher education institutions curriculum is outdated and irrelevant. The shortage of faculty and high students faculty ratio. In most of the state and central universities, more than 30% of faculty positions are lying vacant, while the student enrollment in higher education is growing with faster rate in the last few years. The inadequate infrastructure and facilities also a challenge. Apart from the highly recognized higher educational institutions in India, most of the colleges and universities lack in the basic and high-end research facilities. Many institutes are running without proper infrastructure and basic facilities like library, hostels, transport, sports facility, etc., which is desirable to rank the quality institutions. Presently, there is a very less collaboration of higher educational institutes with industries. And the low employability of graduates is one of the major problem in India. Only a small proportion of Indian graduates are considered employable. Placement outcome also drops significantly as we move away from the top institutes. Apart that, some other problems faced by the higher education system in India includes a severely fragmented higher educational ecosystem, less emphasis on the development of cognitive skill and learning outcomes, a rigid separation of discipline with early specialization and streaming of students into narrow area of study, limited access particularly in socio-economically disadvantaged areas with few higher education institutions that teach in local languages, limited teacher and institutional autonomy, inadequate mechanism for merit-based career management and progression of faculty and institutional leaders, lesser emphasis on research at most universities and colleges, and lack of competitive peer-reviewed research fundings across disciplines, suboptimal governance and leadership of higher education institutions, an ineffective regulatory system, and large affiliating universities resulting in low standards of undergraduate education. To overcome with all these problems, Indian government has introduced a new education policy recently. I would like to throw some light in this National Education Policy 2020, which has the great reform in Indian education system. National Education Policy 2020 has approved by the Union Cabinet on August 5th in focus on minimizing rote learning and introducing reforms in the Indian education system to ensure all-round development of students. This policy envisions a complete overhaul and re-energizing of the higher education system to overcome these challenges and thereby deliver high-quality higher education with equity and inclusion. The policy's vision includes the following key changes to the current system. The first is the moving towards a higher educational system consisting of large multidisciplinary universities and colleges with at least one in or near every district, and with more higher education institutions across India that offer medium of instruction or programs in local or Indian languages. Moving towards a more multidisciplinary undergraduate education, moving towards faculty and institutional autonomy, revamping curriculum, pedagogy, assessment, and student support for enhanced student experiences, reaffirming the integrity of faculty and institutional leadership positions through merit appointments and career progression based on teaching, research and service, establishment of a national research foundation to find outstanding peer-reviewed research and to actively seed research in universities and colleges, governance of higher education institutions by high qualified independent boards having academic and administrative autonomy, light but tight regulation by a single regulator for higher education, and increased access, quality and inclusion through a range of measures including greater opportunities for outstanding public education, scholarships by private or philanthropic universities for disadvantaged and underprivileged students, online education and open distance learning, and all infrastructure and learning materials accessible and available to learners with disabilities. The NEP 2020 and the proposed reform in the regulatory regime of higher education institutions is a positive step for revamping and streamlining the higher education segment within India. The actual result, the change, will depend on ground level implementation of the proposed reforms. While early childhood to semi adult stage, K-12 segment in the founding pillar of holistic child development, higher education system equips a student for a professional life. With the increasing need of creative, multidisciplinary and highly skilled workforce for employment, Indian higher education system needs to be readjusted and revamped to meet the emerging requirements. Some of the key reforms introduced by National Education Policy 2020 in the Indian higher education system includes MHRD renamed as Education Ministry. The Ministry of Education was existing right from the beginning from independence of India. Rajiv Gandhi became Prime Minister of India just after the assassination of his mother Srimati Indira Gandhi in October 1984. Rajiv Gandhi had a different thought process as he was brought up educated on foreign land. He tried to run the government in a different fashion along with his cavalry. He brought various departments of education right from primary education to university education under one roof and renamed the name of Education Ministry to the Ministry of Human Resource Development in 1985. In a major process of implementing new education policy, the Modi government has renamed the ministry as the Ministry of Education. The simple logic behind changing the name is to avoid the confusion and bring is simplicity. और इससे ये भी अच्छा होगा कि जो कंफ्यूजन था कि ये MHRD है, अब ये शिक्षा मंत्रालय के नाम से जाना जाएगा और इसमें अच्छी तरह से सब लोग ध्यान दे सकेंगे. That second is the transforming regulatory system of higher education to address the currently prevailing issues in the higher education system within India. National Education Policy 2020 mandates for setting up of common regulatory regime for entire education sector, eliminating duplication and disjunction of regulatory efforts. Separately, a new General Education Council (GEC) shall also be set up to frame expected learning outcomes for higher education programs, also referred to as graduate attributes. A National Higher Education Qualification Framework (NHEQF) will be formulated by the GEC and it shall be synchronized with the National Skill Qualifications Framework. A single regulator, the National Higher Education Regulatory Authority (NHERA), will be set up to regulate in a light but tight and facilitative manner from importance matters whereas financial probability, good governance, and full online and offline public disclosure of all finance procedure, faculty or staff, courses, educational outcomes will be very effectively regulated. Higher Education Grant Commission (HEGC) will be created, which will take care of funding and financing of higher education based on transparent criteria, including the Institutional Development Program (IDPs) prepared by the institutions and the progress made in the implementation of the institutional development programs. Higher Education Grant Commission will be entrusted the distribution of scholarship and on developmental funds for starting new focus area and expanding quality programs offering in higher education institutions across disciplines and fields. In terms of NEP 2020, the fundamental design principle of an effective regulatory system will thus be Each body in the regulatory system run by independent boards consisting of persons having high expertise in the relevant area along with integrity, commitment, and a demonstrated track record of public service. A single empowered, responsive, but minimalistic regulatory authority to ensure basic regulatory requirements such as financial probability and full public disclosure of finances, procedures, course and program offering and educational outcomes, while otherwise empowering institutions to make their own decisions for the pursuit of excellence. Accreditation through the establishment of independent high quality accrediting bodies overseen by a meta accelerator as the basis of regulation and a clear separation of function to enable adequate focus on each essential role while eliminating conflicts of interest. That is, next is the autonomy of higher education institutions. It is difficult for a layman to understand distinctions in affiliated college, constituent college, and autonomous college. Similarly, it is difficult for a ordinary person, sometimes for even academicians too, to distinguish between deemed to be university, affiliating university, affiliating technical university, and unitary university. The National Education Policy 2020 is going to phase out these distinctions among higher education institutions over a specific period of time, but no later than 2040. There will be universities, autonomous colleges, and training institutions. The fashion of putting emblem of the affiliating university on the college grade or marks sheets will go away. The college will offer degree on their own. This will enhance the quality of education as individual colleges will have their own name attached with the degree offered. It was indeed a kind of injustice of performing college to rank them parallel to incompetent college just because they were affiliated to the same university. The other benefit of this would be that university rank and status would not affect credentials of affiliating college. Removal of such discrimination and bringing all at par will bring in healthy competition among the higher education institutions to crave for quality education. The next is the institutional restructuring and consolidation. The higher education system is proposed to have multidisciplinary institutions of higher learning that offer undergraduate and graduate programs with high quality teaching, research and community engagement. All higher education institutions will move towards becoming large multidisciplinary institutions with programs across disciplines and fields offered either in their institutions or through higher education institutions clusters. The vision is to have all higher education institutions existing as well as new to evolve into research intensive universities, teaching universities, and autonomous degree granting colleges. In addition to teaching and research, all higher education institutions shall also have other crucial responsibilities which they will discharge through appropriate resourcing and structure. These include supporting other higher education institutes in their development, community engagement, and service, contribution to various fields of practice, faculty development for the higher education system, and support to school education system. National Education Policy 2020 intends to end the fragmentation of higher education by transforming higher education institutions into large multidisciplinary universities and colleges, each of which will aim to have 3,000 or more students. The idea is to build vibrant communities of scholars and peers, break down harmful styles, enables students of become well-rounded across discipline, including artistic, creative, and analytical subject as well as sports. Develop active research communities across disciplines, including cross-disciplinary approach, and increase resource efficiency, both material and human, across higher education. In the history of Indian higher education, It is for the first time that a government is going to offer multiple entries and exits to the students pursuing studies in higher education institutions. The University Grant Commission tried to implement choice based credit system CBCS almost a decade ago, but the idea is miserable by failed. There is hardly any higher education institution which has implemented CBCS in letter and spirit. The basic objective was to facilitate students' mobility from one higher education institute to another. The CBCS was supposed to allow a student to carry forward his or her credits to any higher education institution anywhere in the country. Smart professors in the university system, administrators, and vice chancellors played nicely with the loopholes of the scheme. The new education policy 2020 seems to be more serious about taking care of students' interest in terms of loss of their studies and years. There are millions of instances where a student had to leave his or her studies in the mid of the program and he or she was left with no certification of the education they have acquired till the date of leaving higher education institution. You may find your next door neighbor's son or daughter who left the college after a year or two and he or she is having no degree or diploma or certificate for the period he or she had attended the college. The present government is keen to acknowledge every effort of a student and therefore propose to certify each year of college or university education. Further, a left out student can join any higher education institution across the nation carrying his or her credits accumulated till date by attending 1 year or 2 year or 3 year of the college or university system. The government has proposed to set up an academic bank of credit which would digitally store the academic credits earned from various recognized higher education institutions so that the degrees from an higher education institution can be awarded taking into account credits earned. Recognizing the problem which are currently prevailing in higher education system in India, which inter alia includes poor employability of educated workforce, severely fragmented higher educational ecosystem, poor learning outcome and development of cognitive skill of students, rigid separation of disciplines with too much early specialization and streaming of students into narrow areas. National Education Policy 2020 intends to completely overhaul and re-energize the higher education system in India. National Education Policy 2020 envisions introducing certain key changes to the higher education system, which inter alia includes establishment of NRF to fund outstanding peer-reviewed research and to actively seed research in universities and colleges, moving towards faculty institutional autonomy, moving towards higher educational, etc. Revamping curriculum, pedagogy, I discussed earlier. The next is shift towards holistic education with less rote learning. National Education Policy 2020 advocates for promotion of holistic art education to ensure well-rounded development of students. It is thus proposed that multidisciplinary universities and colleges will facilitate the move towards high-quality arts education with flexibility in curriculum and engaging course options being developed and offered to the students. Pedagogy for these courses will strive for significantly less rote learning and an increased emphasis on communication, decision, debate, research, and opportunities for cross-disciplinary and interdisciplinary thinking. Departments in language, literature, music, philosophy, Indology, art, dance, education, aesthetics, mathematics, theatre, pure and applied science, economics, sports, sociology, and other such subjects needed for a multidisciplinary stimulated Indian education and environment will be established and strengthened at higher education institutions across the country. Furthermore, to ensure that students actively engage with the practical side of their learning and improve their employability options, As part of holistic education, students will also be provided with opportunities for internship with local industry, business, artists, craft persons, village and local communities, etc. As well as research internship with faculty and researchers at their own or other higher education institutions or research institutions. That is the professional education. The National Education Policy 2020 envisages that professional education will become an integral part of the overall higher education, and thus it must also significantly involve critical and interdisciplinary thinking and research. Thus, the practice of setting up standalone technical universities, health science universities, legal and agricultural universities or institutions in these fields shall be discouraged, and all existing standalone professional educational institutions will have to become multidisciplinary institutions by 2030, either by opening new departments or by operating in clusters. The professional education standards with technical, health, and legal education are also proposed to be restructured to ensure that the education standards are globally competitive and adapt to the challenges evolving with time. That is a most important area is the teacher education. Recognizing the importance of creating a team of teachers that will shape the next generation. National Education Policy 2020 lays equal emphasis on revamping teacher education as well to reach the levels of integrity and credibility required to restore the prestige of teaching profession. The regulatory system is empowered to phase out substandards and dysfunctional teacher education institutions that do not meet basic educational criteria. The teacher education needs to be conducted within composite multidisciplinary institutions having departments of psychology, philosophy, sociology, neuroscience, Indian language, arts, history and literature, as well as various other specialized subjects such as science, mathematics, etc. Furthermore, by 2030, the 4-year integrated B.Ed offered by multidisciplinary higher education institutions is proposed to be made as the minimal degree qualification for school teachers. The said 4-year integrated B.Ed will be a dual major holistic bachelor degree in education as well as a specialized subject such as a language, history, music, mathematics, computer science, chemistry, economics, etc. for the purpose of maintaining uniform, acceptable standards of education. The admission to pre-service teacher programs shall be through a single nationwide entrance examination to be conducted by the National Testing Agency, which test may contain both subject and aptitude test. Promoting high quality research. Recognizing the importance of knowledge creation and research is growing and sustaining a large and vibrant economy and uplifting the society. NEP 2020 focuses on a comprehensive approach for transforming the quality and quantity of research in India. Thus, to focus on research and promote research culture in all higher education institutions in an interrelated and coordinated fashion. NEP 2020 provided for setting up a NRF, National Research Foundation, which would bring a quantum jump in funding and support for research. The overarching goal of NRF shall be to enable a culture of research to permeate through universities and higher education institutions across India. In this regard, NRF shall inter alia provide a reliable base of merit-based peer-reviewed research funding, helping to develop a culture of research in the country through suitable incentives for and recognition of outstanding research. NRF shall also competitively fund research in all disciplines across the academic landscape with science, technology, science, social science, arts and humanities. The next is internationalization. The National Education Policy 2020 focuses on promoting India as a global study destination providing premium education at affordable costs. It is thus intended that high performing Indian universities will be encouraged to set up campuses in other countries, and similarly select universities will be permitted to operate in India. A legislative framework shall be formulated and introduced facilitating the entry of foreign universities in India, and such universities will be given special dispensation regarding regulatory governance and content norms on par with other autonomous institutions within India. Additionally, research collaboration and students exchange programs between the Indian institutions and global institutions will be promoted, and the credits acquired in foreign universities will also be permitted to be counted for award of degree. The long-term plan as per the policy is to do away with the current system of college affiliated to universities. Each college would become either fully integrated into a university or converted into an autonomous and independent degree giving institution. An independent board would come to govern each higher education institution, whether college or university. Under the policy, numerous existing tiny colleges, they are pedagogically unviable and financially costly, would be merged with larger higher education institutions. Each higher education institution would come to have a minimum of 3,000 students. Higher education institutions will have the freedom to choose the mix between research and teaching as per their strengths, with the sector eventually consisting of highly research intensive institutions at one extreme and highly teaching intensive institutions on the other. This is broadly the structure prevailing in the US and UK. Launch of a 4-year bachelor degree opening India to foreign universities, incorporating vocational education in college curriculum, and creation of a national research foundation. The government must draft a time-bound plan to implement these changes over the next 5 years. The goal should be to have a fully functioning commission with all personnel in place before the end of 2021. An important key to bringing about the challenges the National Education Policy 2020 proposes will be to empower Higher Education Council HECI to confer degree giving power to HEIs. Currently, this power is vested in the central and state governments and the University Grant Commission. Central and state governments create degree giving institutions through legislations. The UGC has the power to convert any existing research or teaching higher education institutions into a deemed to be university. These powers would need to be transferred to and concentrated in Higher Education Council. Only then will the Commission be able to create board administrated degree giving autonomous colleges in the short run, and a higher education system consisting of large higher education institutions with no affiliated colleges in the long run. The HECI Act will also need to accommodate foreign institutions in a flexible manner. At present, the policy envisages allowing only top 100 institutions globally to open campuses in India. There is no guarantee that these institutions would rush to establish campuses in India. Chances are that with no prior experience to serve as a guide to administrative and bureaucratic hurdles in India, they will be hesitant. Therefore, depending on the response of these top 100 institutions, HECI will need enough flexibility to open the door wider to others, lower ranked foreign institutions. Eventually, any foreign institution that helps raise the average level of education should be welcomed. About main challenges, the problems that I have talked about, they were present our higher education system, and I have also tried to cover the challenges during COVID-19 pandemic situation. Thus, National Education Policy has come out with great reform in higher education to meet out the challenges as a whole, And this is a period of pandemic. We are living an era of uncertainty due to COVID-19. And this COVID-19 is not temporary. Nobody knows about this continuity or time period. Even the vaccine is not yet come. So we have to learn to live with it. COVID has given us too many challenges, but it has given us opportunity also, as we are meeting through its digital mode. पहले हम लोग जब किसी सेमिनार वगैरह में जाते थे तो बहुत समय भी लगता था और बहुत पैसा भी खर्च होता था, लेकिन अब कोविड पीरियड में हमें इससे कुछ फायदा भी हुआ है. हम डिजिटल प्लेटफॉर्म पर सब लोग मिलकर अच्छी अच्छी कॉन्फ्रेंसेस वर्कशॉप कर लेते हैं, जैसा आज मैं आपके समक्ष उपस्थित हूं. आपके अगर ये विदाउट कोरोना पीरियड ये कॉन्फ्रेंस या वर्कशॉप हुई होती तो हम लोग वहां इकट्ठे होते, लेकिन हम वहां इकट्ठे होते हुए ना भी हम सब लोग एक प्लेटफॉर्म पर इकट्ठा हैं. ये सब इस चैलेंज को, ये चैलेंज अवसर में बदल गए हैं. तो सो आई थिंक दिस इज एनफ फॉर टुडे. थैंक यू वेरी मच. आई अगेन थैंकफुल to my dear friend Dr. Virendra Kumar for inviting me to be the part of this program and to give me the opportunity to share my thoughts in form of guest speaker. It is my pleasure and privilege to share my thoughts with the participants and academicians as well as organizers. Again, my heartily wishes to organizers along with all the persons who contributed their valuable time, thoughts and support for such a wonderful workshop. The coordinator Dr. Virendra Kumar and Dr. Shilpi Chauhan, who has worked very hard to complete this workshop successfully. So the special credit goes to both. Thank you. Thank you very much. Namaskar.
Thank you so much, sir. And it was such a pleasure to have such a great and nice talk and discussion with you. And Professor Singh has today highlighted the challenges in higher education in pandemic, and as well as he has also highlighted the national education